Aye.
Mr. Smith, aye. Mr. Swayze?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye, motion carries. Brings us to the board superintendent comments. We'll start with Mr. Rick, sir.
We were into it now for a while of full in-person, one-on-one education, and as a parent, had some glowing remarks from my kids saying, it's doing a wonderful experience. They're excited to be back in school. And from dropping off my kids, seeing the procedures that are put in place are being practiced. And so as a board member, I just want to say thank you to our staff, to the administration, also the parents working with our staff, being patient throughout this process, and working with our students to make this a somewhat of a normal experience coming back to school. So just want to say thank you.
Awesome, thank you, sir. Mr. Smith?
No comment.
No comments. Sorry, Mr. Swayze?
I just want to say thanks to Mr. Portwood for helping with open forum every night and for being there so the rest of the coaches can do other things sometimes.
Open gym.
Yeah, open gym. He's been really, really helpful. He's been doing a great job. As have all the teachers over there at the high school. I haven't been over here, but at the high school, middle school, they've really been doing great. Kids all seem happy to be there. And Mr. Mix, I think, kids are happy. Haven't heard any bad things about Mr. Mix, not one. And I think that's great for the kids. Not one.
Well, from the kids.
From the kids.
Got it.
From the kids.
I'll get to my comments.
The kids are all happy this year. I thought, what's going on? And I've been driving the bus, so I'm talking to them, a lot of them. So,
Great.
and they really are happy, even though we have to wear these all the
Yeah.
time.
I have to wear it all day at work on a field of paint. Is that it, sir?
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Combs?
I just want to echo everyone else. My daughter is extremely happy to be back full time. She loves it. The teachers are doing amazing. And I just want to say, everyone just keep doing what they're doing. And I'm glad to hear that we haven't had any cases of it yet. Fingers crossed. That's such a big blessing. So I just hope that that says a big to our maintenance department and to all the custodians. Just thank you. Thank you for putting the health of the children and of the staff. I can tell you all are taking it real serious, and especially during this time of sniffles, of changing weather and everything, it's hard sometimes to tell the difference between a common cold and COVID, and so it's, kids are especially, their anxiety is up because of it. So I can only imagine how hard it is for all the staff and teachers, and just thank you for the parents too for entrusting us to let your kids go back full time. That is amazing, and just thank you. And proud of our district.
Awesome. So, let's see, my comments. We've had a couple of, what's the right word, inquiries, if you will, from community members in the last couple of weeks, and I want to say thanks to them for doing that. One of them was about our website and our financial transparency data being up to date. And I brought that to Mr. McNerney's attention, and I don't want to say he corrected it, right? Because he ensured that the missing data was posted, and then he ensured that the past data that he had data on was correct. And so you'll see tonight on the agenda a discussion item about accounts payable and financial transparency, and that's all a result of that. And I want to, virtually high-five him and our business and management office for taking the time to make sure all that data was good and right and correct. The other inquiry that we had, and this is what I was talking about before we got started, is one of the inquiries was the information updates that is down there in the 10.0 of our agenda available to the public. And I'd asked that question some time ago. And I never really got a good response. I don't know if I ever got a response. So I think that's something we want to think about. Now, I understand that, if you're writing something for public consumption, it may end up in the end looking a little bit different than if you think you're writing it just for the board. And it may, like for instance, when you do that discipline matrix at the end of your update, that's clearly not releasable because that's regarding students and discipline. But sir?
There's no name.
There's no names, but at the same time, our district is small enough you can correlate that stuff very, very easily. And for the record, we do have to do an annual disciplinary report to the state, which is public. And, I think rounded up year-long data is not as sensitive as that. So what I want to propose is really just for everyone to think about whether or not we should move forward with making those updates as part of the public packet. And, yeah, just think about it, and let's talk about it some more at our next opportunity. I think that's all I got. Mr. Anderson, sir.
So, I'll accentuate. I'm going to start off with my 100-day plan updates, and number one on that 100-day plan was getting the right people in the right places with our platform of Carol Dweck's growth mindset. Number one, and she left. What is up with that? Number one on the agenda was the principal. We had a district PD, there she is. Please. I'm paying you accolade. So getting the right people in the right places. Our principal at the Prairie Heights, we did a district PD.
Lower your volume, sir. You're getting feedback.
I'm on.
Who's on?
Oh, you're muted, Tim. I
Yeah.
don't think people can hear you.
Really can.
This one here should be,
Looks like everybody is logged in and muted.
We good, Chuck? There we go.
All right, so unmute yourself, see if that
There
gets
we
it.
go. Okay, let me restart that. 100-day plan update. Getting number one on that 100-day plan was getting the right people in the right places with Carol Dweck's growth mindset. First and foremost, I would like to congratulate our PHE principal. We did a district professional growth, not development, everybody growth. And what she submitted and what she did this day was simply outstanding. So I'm going to commend her and talk about the work she did this last week in building our platform vertically. And that's what we're trying to do is vertical alignment with instruction, PLCs, RTI. Kudos to you with what you did this week. Just absolutely wonderful work. Second, we've been, and Ms. Cheeseman has a lot of sleepless nights over this first grade. And so, long story short, they had a number of candidates, went through the process with rigor and integrity. We did not find a qualified applicant. With that then, we're going to go to a business model of return on investment. Ms. Ibarra was selected by the Prairie Heights principal, and I second that with where we're at. She is doing her work to get licensed, and I'm going to put the ROI, our return on investment, on that credential on what Ms. Cheeseman is endorsing. I did go last Friday to absorb it and watch, and with that, I will second her motion to endorse that instructional platform. So, with that, PHE is going to have Ms. Ibarra as their first grade teacher, and we're going to support her with that. Second is systematizing our budget on my 100-day plan is systematizing our budget and money management. I'll talk more about that in 8.1 with what we're doing there. Third is communication with and transparency with our community. Our webmaster is just doing fabulous work in getting us current, update, and communicative. I've had a lot of complimentary remarks about her work and what she's doing. The DAC is bringing those comments from the community as ambassadors. Truly this DAC, since I started it 2 years ago, we're getting people like Emily and Jeff and the members to be ambassadors for this district, not just title. And that's what I'm counting, and they are doing it. She'll speak to in just a minute. Fourth is rigor across the board, pre-K through 12. And I talked about what we did. Mr. Williams did a super job this last week. As I had worked with our state board, he took it over and just did great work with what we're trying to do in this district with authentic learning. It's called PBL. It's hands-on. It's a different way of learning, and it's difficult because the rubrics are challenging. They're moving targets, but when you have a standard, how do you make that moving target meet the standard? And the kids own the learning. Ms. Cheeseman did this, and Mr. Williams did a fabulous job. He and I get rejuvenated because we're both teachers. When you go and watch, because the teachers had to teach to him what they're doing in their classroom with PBL work, with the rubric we laid out. We have to platform that, so it's when you're third grade and you get to high school, not much variance except the maturity of the rigor, but it's still rigor. And that's what he did on this week with our work in the PBL. I don't know, Brett, if you have anything you want to add to that, but our DeFore practices, what Michelle has taken and is doing with RTI, just beautiful stuff. Next, big thing, is Student Appreciation Day, is what we're going to do this year. And that's going to happen coincidentally on October 1. But we are going to have some fun with this. Ms. Cheeseman and I talked a little bit. We talked about it at the high school. October 1 is going to be Student Appreciation Day. PHE has got an agenda of what they're going to develop. This day, I will say, anybody watching is killing me, because there will be no academics this day. I know, I'm shaky, but I gotta do it for one day. We're gonna have fun, and we're gonna celebrate kids for pursuing and enduring this pandemic. It's been hard, but I will tell you, the Hanover kids, since March 13, our attendance, our academics are not what other districts did. You just need to know that. And we need to celebrate that. October 1, we're going to do it. And so anybody watching, enjoy October 1. We're going to have some fun. They have no homecoming. They have no athletics. They have nothing. We're going to have some fun this week. And we're going to celebrate what kids are doing specifically on October 1. We're going to buy them lunch. We're going to have some games. We're going to have some activities. We're going to have some fun. And they need to know it. Sir?
We're going to have a superintendent dunk tank.
So let's move on. Thanks, Dwight. Appreciate your support with that.
What about a board secretary dunk tank?
Right?
Really getting out of hand right now?
Anybody have a dunk tank out there?
I've got mine.
Military guys that we can rent.
Got my comments I'm going to stay with here. Is that okay? All right.
Proceed, sir.
Okay. All right. Next is CHASA. If you haven't been apprised, Brett put it in his information update, but as he and I talked before we came here, those have moved also. I don't know how much we want to go into that right now. The winter season schedule still stands. However, they met Tuesday, Monday, did they vote again? I think, and this is purely subjective thought, I think it's going to change. So that's just, it's not real, it's just my feeling. And with our athletic director, I think we have a pretty good consensus it's going to change. Get ready. Next is general fund revenue updates. Just as my last thing is, we've got 2 items. We've got 2 ballot measures coming. The tobacco tax proposal that would increase general fund revenues, and then we have initiative 306 that would decrease revenues. They're talking about the state flat tax rate going from 4.63 to 4.55, which would end up costing us about $80 million in the fiscal 2021 and
Statewide though, right?
Statewide, correct. And then in 21-22, $160 million. From a federal relief perspective, flip a coin. We'll see what happens. The single day counts, there were a number of, I did my superintendent meeting all day Thursday with Pikes Peak and our Rural Alliance, SAC. There were a number of districts. I was shocked. The D20, D49, all the larger districts are 4 to 5 to 6 to 700 kids short. Each district. And what's challenging right now is nobody knows where they're at. So you would think they're going online. They are having a tough time tracing where these kids using COVID language. Where are they? So they are saying the day count that's coming up is what do we get for relief? Right now the state is saying it stands. Okay, get ready. They're also talking, I did another meeting on Monday, that there is variances that are being proposed, perhaps a February count to offset it. There are a number of things that are coming into play because right now, if the date that's being proposed stands with what's being proposed with the Gallagher Act amendment right now, the Gallagher right now, they're saying, is going to drop lower revenues by about 250 to 400 million. What will the state do to come back? We don't know. We're talking about almost $1 billion again, and how is the state going to come? When I did my meeting Friday with our Superintendent Association, the Rural Alliance superintendents, they're talking 10 to 15, maybe 20% cuts this spring. So just to keep people advised. Assessments, we're done with district, we've done MAP, we're doing DIBELS, we're doing all that. We will be doing at the high school. This year I always do my future day, but I have a buddy that worked in New Jersey for College Board. This year's future day will be state. So it can go on a transcript. For our seniors, this is huge because they didn't get to do it as juniors. So now what you can do is take this assessment on the 14th when we're doing it and put it on a transcript for money. And our senior class, all of the kids, are super stoked about this. It's really cool. So our future day this year has a little different tone. Instead of data collection, getting ready for April, this one counts, and our teachers are doing fabulous work in getting ready for that. They started last year. The gaps are there. When Michelle and I talked, we got some gaps, definitely March to now, but they aren't as bad as we thought. Really, our Hanover kids are doing some pretty good stuff. And lastly then, we had a lot of data collection over the summer months and spring. And what we found at the high school, middle school is we got some bullying. We knew it. We didn't know how prevalent it was. Our counselor developed a tool. And this tool, we're going after bullying. It's not good. It's not cool. That's not what we're going to do in this district. So we've got a tool. Once we get some data on the effectiveness, we've got some rating reliability we've got to get fixed. We've got some tools with communication. We've got a number of things. Once we get that, I'll be excited to report back to the board and the community on the effectiveness of this tool. So that's my update.
Awesome. Any alibis from the board? No?
That's what I'm talking about, the students have not had one bad thing about this week. All this that he is putting forth and doing for them, the seniors, they're all happy about it, even mine, which I can't believe. This is what I was trying to tell you guys.
All right, so then that brings us to 7.0, Jack report to the board. Was there a Jack thing?
Yes.
So we started off talking about the follow-up for the elementary school and some of the safety concerns that were presented last year. So thank you, Michelle. I can say personally, I've gotten experience it a few times so far, and the process is so much better. There was concerns of when the buses were being loaded at the beginning, right in front of the building, your parents were backed up on Indian Village, and for those of you who get there, they don't drive very safely on Indian Village. But now there's, I don't really think there's really any turnover into the street with having the buses off to the side. Ms. Cheeseman and Mr. Register did phenomenal communication, it seems like, to get those kids out of the building. So thank you guys for sure, because we definitely appreciate that. We are still waiting on the Chromebooks and iPads to come in the process of working on the hotspots for the school, being prepared for the what is COVID. We did, as Tim talked about, the count day would be huge for Hanover with the amount of students that are trending.
Well, can you do me a favor? Can you turn your microphone on or unmute yourself on your Zoom and see if you can get? Oh, I thought you were. Yeah.
Just giving me some feedback.
We're getting complaints that you can't be heard, so.
You can't hear it.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Emily.
They're on
Go for
there.
it. All right.
So, we started with the safety concerns from prior to last year on exercise time, so incredible thank you, Ms. Cheeseman and Mr. Register for getting that line going and the buses off to the side so the parents are not on Indian Village waiting their pickup time. We're waiting on Chromebooks and iPads to come in as well and getting the hotspots in place to have them for the students. When it comes to student count pay, that could be a huge thing for Hanover because we're trending almost 30 students, 40 students over, which could be a huge deal financially for the district. It's over $400,000 if everyone's in attendance for that, so that could be a great thing for our kids. Mr. McDermott talked about the tablet updates. The other big thing we talked about was having an administrative building for the district. That's one of the ruling districts that does not have one. So using the old elementary school next to the high school, there's being updates done to get that in place for a board meeting, the business administrative office, for business services, sorry. And the nice part is it's all from insurance money. So for those of you worried about budget, my first question is him, and it's coming from that hail damage that we got. So it is a lot of great things. We discussed the new cook for Prairie Heights, how the kids are responding really well, so great choice there, guys. You know, my picky eater still loves to see Miss Abby, so two thumbs up there. And then we just kind of talked a little bit about testing results and kind of what that means and how school uses it. So it's more so to help with student growth and lesson planning. That's most of our back. And obviously, we encourage everyone to come to that meeting.
Absolutely, please come to the deck meeting, people.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
I'm gonna unmute everybody, so, unmute. All right, that brings us to 8.1, discussion on financial transparency accounts payables. And I talked a little bit about this earlier, about how a lot of this was really just solicited by a community member asking about our financial transparency page. And I just brought it to Mr. McNerney's attention, and then I'll let you tell him what he did about it.
Very good.
I'm going to unmute.
Very good, thank you. So, as our board president approached me and said we had a community member come and bring some awareness to us about our financial transparency, again, you know, it'll go to the platform of business that I come from, and that is, if you're going to be good, surround yourself with great people. They're going to have to be incredible to make me look good, but that's not the point. Business services took this and just went to town on it. So what they did was, if you go to the financial transparency tab on the lower right-hand corner of our page, we address the query of transparency for payables. So business department led by Ms. Pat and specifically Ms. Dean took over this and took initiative. When our board president came to me, he said, March, go back to March. She took the initiative to go back to October. And what we found were some inconsistencies with formatting and how they were tabled for line item, which includes salaries. And that's not a payable. So what they did was they went through and did some edits to get the template formatted for payables and readability. And so what you'll see now, we went back, Ms. Dean went all the way back to October, and Ms. Dean and Pat did this together. You gotta love the team part of it, but I'm thinking a couple of weeks minimum, 3 days. They busted it. I'm just so proud of their work. So what we did was, again, we went, my system, they from an analytical, algorithmic perspective, put it in so it's all uniform and easy to read and reliable. This information is extremely reliable. So that's what they did, and kudos to them.
Yeah, I just want to comment that I'm thoroughly, let me unmute. So personally, I'm thoroughly impressed with the response that I got, just not from Mr. McNerney, but also from business services. I mean, above and beyond, you know, those reports should have already been in the bag somewhere, and all we would have had to done was pull them out and post them, and you guys didn't find them, so you created them, and you said, well, wait, let's go back and make this consistent and correct, and just absolute kudos to you guys, all three of you. All right, any other comments or discussions on 8.1? Good. All right, that brings us to 9.1, the 2020 property valuation. Do I have a motion to approve the 2020 property valuation?
Also move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Well, that was real close. I'll let you pick.
Let's go with it.
All right, so for those of you that don't know, every year the county assessor sends us a form and says, hey, please validate your boundaries so that we can collect and disperse to you the proper amount of property taxes. Being as this was Mr. McNerney's first time at this, I volunteered to do the work for him because I mean, you saw all the updates they talked about. He's really busy. And this takes just 5 or 10 minutes. And so I went ahead and did it, and our boundaries were good, exactly as I expected. Went back a few years just to double check, to make sure nothing's changed. So, yeah, so I put this together for the board to approve, because, I don't like to sign anything for the board, for the district, unless the board approves it. So that's what this is all about. Questions, comments, discussion?
Thank you for helping.
All right, call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Gomes?
Aye.
Mr. Ricks?
Aye.
Mr. Smith? Aye. Mr. Swayze?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye. Brings us to 9.2, Board Administrative Assistant. Do I have a motion to approve Board Administrative Assistant?
I'll motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, Mr. Smith, since you were the chair of that committee, would you like to brief everyone on this, please?
So, in the process of completing this recruitment for a board administrative assistant, Mr. McNerney, Mr. Swayze, and myself met and hammered out the requirements and what the announcement would entail. Mr. McNerney posted that announcement on Indeed. Within about a 7-day period, we had 42 applications. And it was odd where these applications came from and how they came from. Because they came from California, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Texas. Apparently, as people read that, they looked at it as a remote-only opportunity, when one of the requirements was that they would have to preside at our board and conduct our meetings, and also at work sessions and other times. I went through the applications and weeded out all the ones that were not locally, and by locally, that was the Pueblo and El Paso County. There were 11 applicants that met that. After that, Mr. Swayze and I did a quantitative analysis of those candidates, and we were looking for 3 items. Do they have administrative assistant experience, which was a requirement of the job? Do they have an in-depth knowledge of Google, which was listed as a requirement? And the third thing we looked at was a preferred qualification, was familiarity with WordPress. Of those 11 applications, only 2 applicants had any experience with being an administrative assistant and having the Google Doc experience, and one of those 2 also had WordPress experience. So we firmed up that we would interview 2 candidates for the board. I reached out to both candidates, and one of the candidates contacted me back and said they were no longer interested in the position. So we had 1 candidate to interview. Last Wednesday, Mr. McNerney and myself did interview that candidate. It was a virtual interview, and unfortunately, Mr. Swayze had a technical issue of a computer that died. He was not able to join us. But we interviewed our 1 candidate. That candidate is highly qualified in all purposes of doing the job, except they had 1 problem. Because they are related to somebody on the board, they said they did not feel that it would be appropriate for them to be at the board table taking meeting minutes. So we had the full interview. I thought about it, and because they cannot take the meeting, because they will not be able to take the meeting minutes, and taking meeting minutes was a requirement of that position, this recruitment is actually a failed recruitment. So nobody rose, we have no job, no candidate to offer the job to. I work with HR for the state, so that does follow HR practices. If I made an exception, or if we as a board made an exception for this candidate, we would have to make an exception so all of those people that applied that could only do remotely, if they met the other requirements, would have to be offered an interview anyway. And I didn't feel that was fair to anybody or the district, because we want something specific. So, in my recommendation to the board is that we suspend our recruitment until our next fiscal year, and at the same time we engage our current webmaster that is very good with Google documents and all the back-end stuff that the board needs, because This administrative person would also be working hand in hand with the webmaster, because there's quite a bit of web updates and items on the web for our board, in our board page. So my recommendation is, 1, we suspend the recruitment, and 2, that we engage our current webmaster to help us get our back end, all of our back end stuff up to date and accurate, so at such time that we do bring on an administrative assistant, we are essentially made whole, and that person can take over and have essentially a clean house to work in, and some best practices and standards to follow. Are there any questions from the board?
No. Any questions? Mike, call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Combs?
Aye.
Mr. Ricks?
Aye.
Mr. Smith? Aye. Mr. Swayze?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye. Brings us to 10.0 information updates. Any questions, comments, etc. on the information updates? As always, I would like to thank those of you who spent time.
9.3.
On 9.3, the motion carries.
No, we have 9.
That was not,
Oh, that was 9.2,
oh my
sir.
goodness.
We have not addressed 9.3.
I was scratching out the wrong number. All right, my apologies, ladies and gentlemen. That brings us to 9.3, credit card closures and openings. Do you have a motion to approve 9.3?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. So the background on this is that some time ago, we decided to move away from credit cards and move towards purchase cards to provide us some additional financial controls. And in doing so, the financial institution wants meeting minutes directing or from the board district directing the closure. I looked through the past minutes and I did not find anything that would suffice. Between then and now, the current administration has thought it would be wise to keep 2 credit cards open, actually keep 1 credit card open and open a new credit card account as a line of credit for a reserve or emergency type situation. And so what we're proposing here is that we close all the credit cards except for 1, and then we open another one, and the new one will have a $3,000 line of credit. The one that we're not closing is for the interim superintendent, and keeping his line of credit at his current level. So that is what this motion is all about. I finally got to the point that I figured it needed to be in action at about 6:32 last night, which is why I didn't get it on the agenda for this evening's board meeting time. So, any questions, comments, discussions on any of that?
No, it's just nice to know we're tagging things up.
Yeah, we are. And,
Who's gonna be able to use it for?
Mr. McNerney and the business manager.
So if I need to go get something, I can't just go borrow Mr. McNerney's card.
No, sir.
That's a problem we're having. That's
If,
what I wanna
if you
make
need
sure.
something, you submit a PO. And then once that purchase order is approved, probably it would be end up being Mr. Williams, assuming in your role as a coach, you would be making a PO. Mr. Williams would then exercise the rights on his purchase card to procure whatever material.
I just wanted to make sure you all knew how it worked.
You were talking
I already been
hypothetically.
briefed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've
I got
already
purchase
been
cards
briefed.
working out work.
Okay, good.
So the idea for those of you that are not up to speed is that the way the purchase card is set up, you can't purchase anything without an approved PO. And credit cards are not set up that way. So that's what those additional financial controls are that we were talking about. Anything else? Okay, call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Combs?
Aye.
Mr. Ricks?
Aye.
Mr. Smith? Aye. Mr. Swayze?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye. Now, this brings us to then 10.0 information updates. As always, I want to thank those people that take time out of their day to provide us some information that we don't normally see in their updates. Any questions or comments?
I just love them. I love how thorough they are. I enjoy them. I really enjoy the one with the business services department.
Yeah, that was a new ad
Yes,
with
it was.
the new interim.
And so I really enjoyed that. I feel like I get the whole picture with all the updates. So thank you for just being so thorough with them.
I like the updates, and I'm really, I like the tone you set last year with yours, Mr. McNerney, of the rigor, and letting us know some of the things that are being done with Hattie and the other individual with that, and those are really good. I'm really excited for this year. Ms. Cheeseman's using those same type of best practices within the elementary school, and I'm excited to see the movement we will make as Hanover to be where we should be. And all those updates are phenomenal. They help me so that I can understand what's really going on, because unfortunately I'm still in a position where I got to work, which kind of takes away from my ability to get out. But they're wonderful and they're helpful, and thank you for everyone that provides those. And the only one I had difficulty with is the AD one, I think, was in like font 6. And
Which one? I got 3 from him.
yeah.
Well, he's got a lot of.
But that just comes from computer fatigue, because working from home, I'm stuck with my computer all day. So maybe go to 12 instead of 10.
No, I just like seeing what we're getting, because it also keeps us as a board informed and helps us, I feel, make the best decision we can for the district.
Yeah, so I have to say, I really enjoyed the tone of Ms. Cheeseman's updates. They're very uplifting and cheerful. She'd be talking about boring things, some like student count, and somehow it's still cheerful and uplifting, so.
The growth mindset.
Exclamation points.
The growth mindset coming through.
Yes, you.
Is there a chance I could add something?
Sure, always, sir.
Literally within the last 10 minutes, I've been in communication with Assistant Commissioner at Shasta, and our governor has approved some variances. That's been presented to him by Shasta, but nothing has been finalized yet, so we don't have a final vote, we don't have final details. This ties in with what Mr. McNerney was saying earlier on in the meeting. So, positive news, potential, but still do not have a final vote on what direction we will be going. But like Mr. McNerney said, I would lean towards there's a real good chance we could be seeing some fall sports coming in the near future.
That's on 6 o'clock.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to 11. Item 11, other business. Any other business?
No, sir.
None? All right. That brings us to 12. Item 12, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We're adjourned.